if they were to proceed down that path for some reason, what would be Alberta's response?
Well, they will have a national unity crisis on their hands at the same time as having a crisis with our U.S. trade partners. We just won't stand for that, and I don't think Ontarians and Quebec should stand for that as well. They shouldn't be standing by and listening while a federal minister talks about cutting off their energy supply. That's just not on. That makes no sense.
A national unity crisis. Of course, she's accurate. There's something else in that clip there, though. She says the Liberals don't even know enough about energy to know that if you stop the export of oil to America, one of the important pipelines that brings oil to Ontario and Quebec cuts through the United States. These are idiots. You know what? I saw a piece of good news today, which is that the Liberal government, the Liberal caucus, pardon me, is going to have one last party, one last retreat on January 20th and 21st. They're going to go and party it up at some luxury lodge and have a farewell dinner. I'm glad. I mean, of course, it's extremely expensive and they're just wringing out everything they can. But that tells me that none of those MPs are going to be down in Washington during that key time of the inaugural because they would only screw it up. You know that's true. By contrast, Danielle Smith herself will be in Washington, D.C. She has been several times, schmoozing, trying to let people. She even met with Donald Trump the other day. I don't know if you saw her Twitter picture. It looked like a very brief meeting, but at least she's there flying the flag and saying, hey, Donald Trump, the one import you actually want from Canada more than any others is oil. And by the way, we like you enough to understand that you just want a stronger border. I think Danielle Smith is doing more diplomacy than the entire federal government combined. I think that's deliberate. I think Justin Trudeau wants to fight with Trump. He hates Trump. And I think he realizes that the Liberal Party has a chance in the upcoming election if it can frame its enemy as Donald Trump as opposed to Pierre Poilievre. So you've heard some of my thoughts on this before, but let me introduce to you a friend of ours who covers Danielle Smith and the province of Alberta quite closely and is intimately familiar with oil and gas. I'm talking, of course, about our friend Lorne Gunter, senior commentator at the Edmonton Sun, who joins us now. Lorne, great to see you again.
Good to see you.
What do you take of the fact that Melanie Joly would just so cavalierly say, "Oh yeah, we'll just turn off the oil taps"? I don't even think that's constitutionally legal. I mean,
I think constitutionally they have the right to stop something from being exported because they're in charge of that. But you're right in that under the Canada, Mexico, United States trade agreement that was worked out back in 2017, I don't think they have the power to do that. I also don't think that Donald Trump has the power to impose a 25% tariff under that same agreement. I think both sides are acting badly. But yeah, it's lunacy to say, we'll just cut off energy sales to the United States. First of all, 96 or 97% of our oil exports go to the United States. Now, since the Trans Mountain Pipeline started up in May of 2024, we've increased the amount that's being sent to Asia. We'll continue to increase that amount, but it doesn't come anywhere close yet to the amount that gets sent to the United States. We would be cutting off our own noses to spite Melanie Joly's face, because about 1/3 of all Canadian exports are Alberta oil and gas. So it would affect the entire economy. It would affect the entire American economy too, because we are now responsible for about 24 or 25% of all the oil that they process in the United States. That's how big we become. Since 1993, when we were a small percentage of America's import oil, we have, as they have decreased their exports, we've also increased ours, so that we are now 2/3 of America's imported oil. We far exceed Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, Nigeria, the other exporting countries. And that was deliberate. You'll remember under the Bush administration, that Dick Cheney, who was the vice president, who had been an oil executive, saw Canada as an integral part of America's domestic energy security. And so he wanted us treated as though we were a 51st state, like we were part of the United States. So we could be counted on. We could be relied upon to provide them with energy quickly, cleanly, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, you've written a book about all of that. So, so it doesn't behoove either side to be playing this stupid game, but the federal liberals are double stupid. Yeah. Like Trump is crazy like a fox. Look at what he's made the federal government here do. I mean, they're spinning around like tops because of his threat of a 25% tariff. They should be looking for ways to increase our border security so that there are fewer illegal immigrants going from here to the United States and fewer illegal drugs. They're not doing that, but they are spinning, like, as I said, like tops. In fear of this 25% tariff. But they have no understanding of economics. They don't really understand what that would do. They don't really know how they could stop that. They just know that they can. The first thought every liberal has is, how can this win me votes? Yeah. That's the first thought they have. Yeah. And so do they know how much the Americans are dependent on our oil? Do they know how much we are dependent on exports to them? No, but it looks really good to shake your fist at Donald Trump because that might get you a vote in downtown Toronto.
Yeah. You know, it would cost, I would say, in the billions to strengthen our border. I think the federal government's proposed $1.3 billion. It probably needs to be several times that. We've seen provinces like Alberta take steps without waiting for the feds, which is sort of unusual. But again, that's Danielle Smith trying to get ahead of this. Let's just say it's 10 times that. I'm just making up a number. Let's say it's $13 billion to harden our border with the U.S. That's all Trump said. I want fewer illegal drugs and fewer illegal migrants, including terrorists. All right, well, Canada wants that too. So let's say you could spend $10 billion to get that done, as opposed to all these proposed trade wars that not only Melanie Joly, but frankly, Doug Ford of Ontario seems really excited about. They seem really butch. Oh, we're going to do this. We're going to ban this and tariff that. The cost of turning off the taps of oil for 1 week would exceed $10 billion. Why do I mean? And they're so excited about talking about that butch trade war instead of actually fixing the problem. They literally would rather keep illegal drugs and migrants going than avoid a trade war. That's the crazy thing to me. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of points about, is it legal? Could they do it? By the way, Lorne, a lot of the oil companies operating in Alberta are American companies. We call it Imperial Oil. In the States, if I'm not mistaken, that's known as Exxon. I think that's the Canadian subsidiary. Like, and I think half of the ownership of Canada's different oil sands companies are American pension funds. I mean, those are, there's Canadian companies, of course there are, and they're Canadian workers, but there's a lot of American ownership of those companies in the stock market. They're all listed on the New York Stock Exchange, for heaven's sakes. So it makes no sense to go down the road of this war. And I think that's what Danielle Smith is politely saying. And by the way, that's what Stephen Harper said. Here, let me play a quick clip of Harper saying, look, you're actually getting our oil at a discount because we really can't sell it to other people because all those pipelines have been blocked. Energy East has been blocked, the Northern Gateway. Here's a quick clip of Harper saying, yeah, we actually subsidize America with below world market price oil. Take a look.
I understand that, Donald Trump may want some changes in trade arrangements, but I must admit to being shocked by some of the things he said. They're just not so. First of all, we don't actually sell dairy into the United States, or sell almost none. So that's not true. Canada, it is true that Canada presently has a modest trade surplus with the United States. The reason, Gabe, we do is because you buy so much of our oil and gas. In fact, you buy it at a discount to world markets. It's actually Canada that subsidizes the United States in this regard. And, so maybe my response is maybe Canadians, if Mr. Trump feels this way, should be looking at selling their oil and gas to other people. We certainly have always wanted to do some of that. Maybe now's the time to do it.
So, yeah. And again, Harper's tone there is not belligerent, but is very grown up. And it's a guy who has who's read the briefing notes. I don't think Melanie Joly has read a briefing note since she became an MP. I'm ready to have tough conversations. All options are on the table. She really is the female equivalent of Jagmeet Singh.
Yeah, I think so. She's actually the female equivalent of Justin Trudeau. Justin Trudeau is not a very bright guy. I mean, you used to call him the shiny pony. I used to call him the lightweight, because I think he is. I think he's an intellectual lightweight. I don't think he's very smart. He sounds clever because he's not too bad with words, although the way he delivers a speech now tends to rankle most people. Yeah. It gets under their skin. It's kind of a smarmy, cloying way of speaking. Yeah. But nonetheless, he's not terribly bright. He doesn't understand this stuff, and he doesn't pretend to understand it, which is unfortunate. But when you're prime minister, you don't have to understand every file. You simply have to bring into your cabinet people who do. But none of his cabinet ministers really understand any of this either. Melanie Joly is called by Warren Kinsella, who was a colleague of both of ours back at Sun News. He calls her the worst cabinet minister in Canadian history. And she is just, I mean, that's a long list of buffoons. A lot of people, yeah. You know, so that's a pretty high bar, low bar, however you want to look at it, for her to jump over. She is terrible. She's not very clever. And I think in that respect, that's why Trudeau picked her. She's an attractive Francophone woman from Montreal, and she doesn't challenge him. He gets rid of women who challenge him. He gets rid of the Chrystia Freelands. He gets rid of the Jody Wilson-Raybould. You know, all of those. Jane Philpott. If you're a smart woman and you challenge him, he dumps you. So that's why Melanie Joly has been in cabinet as long as she has, is because she's not very smart and she doesn't challenge him. And unfortunately, she's now in charge of the file. I mean, she said, I'm not running for the Liberal leadership because I need to concentrate on the Canada-US trade dispute. No, she's not running for the Liberal leadership because she couldn't get the money and she couldn't get the support. There was almost no one in caucus who wanted to throw their name behind her in an endorsement. Yeah. That's what she had very little chance of winning. That's why she didn't run. But the bad news is she's now going to focus on the Canada-US file, and she's not very good at it.
Yeah.